Ole Miss linebacker Chance Campbell, kind enough to join us. This will be the first of many visits between us and Chance over the course of this fall. We're going to talk to Chance during camp. It's going to be pretty sporadic because he's got camp and it's preseason and it's super busy, and the time is pretty much completely consumed by football and meetings and such. But once camp is over and we get into the season, we'll figure out a time, probably early in the week, each week, when we'll spend 20 minutes or so together, and we'll bring that to you. I know all of you out there on our YouTube channel are interested in hearing from Chance over the course of the season. We are too. This is brought to you by the Rogue, by the way, the Rogue 4450 I-55 North in Jackson. We'll be telling you about specials at the Rogue throughout the season. I've got Chance's in Maryland right now. I've got a package of gear for Chance right back here that he'll be wearing, be modeling. Have you ever modeled before, Chance?
No, I think they find better looking dudes for that.
So he'll be modeling a little bit over the course of the year, some different stuff from the Rogue. So we'll get that to him when he gets back into town. But first of all, appreciate you doing this. Excited about it. How you doing?
Good. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. This whole NIL thing, never really done anything like this. So excited to be on here and learn from you and talk with some guys.
So I'll start here. I'm curious, when this whole NIL thing happened, did you even give it any thought? I mean, did it even cross your mind that, hey, this might impact me, or how could I, benefit from this? Or did you even think about it?
Yeah, to be honest with you, not really at all. I know it was kind of in the works. I know people had been talked about for a bunch of years now, and then people were saying, like, rumors are starting that it was going to kind of come to fruition. But having moved from Maryland to Oxford, like kind of in a new area, I didn't really think that thought I might have a couple opportunities at Maryland since I'm from Maryland, been there my whole life. So moving to Oxford, I didn't really think too much of it. So I didn't really pay any attention to it. And then, so it's kind of interesting to see like what ends up coming of it.
So let's start with your career at Maryland a little bit. You signed with Maryland out of high school. That was with Coach Durkin. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. What was
that like? I know you had a handful of other opportunities. What was it about Maryland that you liked then? And we'll start there.
Yeah, so that was I wasn't a super highly recruited guy. Maryland was my first offer. And it was my first offer, I want to say February of my junior year. So after I had played my junior season. So that was kind of always stuck out to me, because there's a time when you're in high school and you're not, like, you feel like you can play the next level, but you might not necessarily have the gratification of people telling you that you can. And so when that first one came down, you're like, oh, cool, like this is something I could maybe do. And then my recruiting didn't really go crazy like a lot of guys see. So it just kind of stayed pretty constant, but as a place near home, I'm a big homebody. I'm home right now. All those things kind of added up and had that be the right place at the time.
You had a really solid career there. At what point did you start to think, hey, I see guys out there doing the grad transfer thing. I know you're a good student, probably a really good student. You were getting out of school quickly with your bachelor's degree. Did you start to think, hey, I could look around, or at some point did you think I'll pursue my master's at Maryland and continue to stay here? What was sort of that process like?
Yeah, so luckily I had a lot of guys older than me on the team when I got there told me about like the importance of getting classes kind of done and under your belt. And the reason being was for me at the time to kind of pursue a master's. So try to get everything out of a scholarship, because I feel like a lot of times it's really easy to kind of just skate by and not really get much out of your education. But like really lucky being an athlete, having that taken care of. So kind of like go out and get the most of it. So I was kind of chugging at classes early, trying to graduate so I could go pursue a master's. And then just so happened to be that when you do that, that kind of opens up some grad transfer opportunities as well. So that wasn't like on my mind. Just kind of one of those things that kind of fell into place.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit, because we'll get back to this, because I wonder if the two things are tied in a little bit. I've told this story about me a year ago, about this time. We're recording this on Monday, August the 2nd. About this time a year ago, Chance, and I'm sure you remember it well, there were a lot of rumblings that, hey, the football season's really in jeopardy due to the COVID pandemic. Specifically, there were some strong rumors that the Big Ten, the Pac-12 were almost certainly leaning towards opting out. You were getting ready for, I guess at that time, kind of getting ready for whatever was to be at Maryland. What was going through your mind when I know you're not a big social media guy, but come on, we were following the story. You were aware of it. What was on your mind when you were thinking, so I'm getting ready for a season that might not happen, probably won't happen? What was that like as a player?
Yeah, it was a really strange process. So we had actually been, so it started we obviously didn't do spring ball. And then came back for workouts in June. And that was one of those things that was weird because it was like nothing. And then boom, it's like, hey, we're going to start working out in the next week. So you're like, okay, cool. Like things might start happening. Going through workouts, like those are strange. Like, so you're lifting outside, everything's spaced apart, but you kind of think to yourself, you're like, man, college football is just, my thought was it's too big to fail. Like there's no way that we're not going to play a season. But then you get closer to camp. And it's like things are still like you can't play football 6 feet apart. Like you can't not be in a locker room together. So it's kind of strange. You're like, I wonder when it's going to click. And then we actually kind of jumped into like a little pseudo camp early. I think a lot of teams did where you were allowed to do like football related things. So we were doing that for a little while, but then you start hearing these murmurs that's like not going to go down. And it's like that was really strange because you're going to the facility and it's like, okay, this is happening. And we were actually quarantined in a hotel. So in Maryland, we weren't at our place. It was like, that was a different experience as well, but we were in a hotel.
Programs in a hotel?
Yeah, we were in a hotel for, I want to say, I could probably pull it up and get you an exact date, but we were in the hotel like the back half of July.
Oh my God.
And it was weird. So like I have, like you said, I'm not a big social media guy, but I had a bunch of my buddies are in different places now. And so we have these things called, like, I don't know if you're familiar, but like Snapchat memories.
Oh yeah.
So like
a year ago today. I'm aware of Snapchat.
Yeah. So like a year ago today. So I started sending something to some of my buddies, like us in the hotel, but there's this weird thing where like you're at the facility and you're like, all right, there's going to be a season. And then you get back in the hotel, you like cut the TV on, like go to ESPN, and then you start hearing the rumbles. Then someone pulls out their phone on Twitter and some analyst is like, this isn't going to happen. And so it's like, you kind of go back and forth and it's just like, it's kind of crazy.
So when the announcement got made, I remember it vividly. My daughter had just gone back to college. My wife and my other two kids went to Birmingham to visit her sister. And I got a call. I've told this story on the podcast a ton of times. This will be the first time you've probably heard it. I got a call from somebody who pretty close up to the SEC who said, hey man, I don't know. And I said, what do you mean you don't know? And he said, I don't know. And I said, is there going to be a season? And he said, we're going to try, but it doesn't look good. And this was on the heels of it was on a Sunday. It was on the heels of the announcement that the Pac-12 was not going to play and the Big Ten. I might have the two leagues confused, but one of the leagues had announced it wasn't going to play. And the other league was announcing the next day that it wasn't going to play. And it was just such a depressing feeling, you know, I mean, as someone who works in sports media, what was that like for you? Because for you, it impacted you far more than it did me. You played for a Big Ten school. When the announcement is made that, hey, the Maryland Terrapins are not going to have a football season this year, what was that?
Yeah, that was
that moment.
Yeah, so I want to say the Big Ten came down with the first and the Pac-12 was the next day because I kind of remember. Well, I remember the first shock because I remember like a few months earlier when like in March when things were when things were kind of first happening, like how there'd be a big school. Like I remember the Ivy League canceled their tournaments and then it was kind of like a rumble. So I remember being like thinking in that moment, like, I wonder what those guys are feeling like. And then fast forward to, I think it was like August 5th or something like that, maybe.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Like the Big Ten said it. I think we were the first, and we finished a practice the day before, then didn't go out to practice. So that was one of those things where it's like, something isn't right because we were supposed to be in pads. They stopped that process. I don't know if you remember that, but we were that acclimatization period, supposed to go 2 days of helmets and then pads, but we never even made it into pads. So I remember they canceled it and guys were kind of like looking left, looking right. And like we were still in the hotel at that point. And so like emergency Zoom meeting, like guys are like, all right, yeah, out of the hotel by tonight. Like if you need a place to stay, you can stay there. But if not, like we're done. So like guys are kind of looking around like, yo, like what do we do? And so you're just like kind of hoping it's not real.
You ended up having a season, and we'll talk about that season over the course of future conversations with you because I am absolutely fascinated what it was like from a player standpoint to play a Maryland Penn State game, for example, at Penn State in an empty stadium, because that's not what
No,
you sign up for, right? I mean, you sign up to play in front of 100,000 people, and whether you
yeah,
play for the Nittany Lions or to be, the enemy inside that arena. I mean, one way or the other, there's a high to that. What is it like? And we'll talk about this a lot more over the course of the years. We talk about different things and different
mhm.
games and such, but just what was that like playing in front of these completely empty stadiums?
Yeah. So I'll kind of hammer on Penn State real quick, 'cause that's kind of a funny situation. So my dad actually played football at Penn State back in the '80s. So
Okay, I
played
didn't
for
know
Joe
that.
Paterno. Yeah. So like that when I was real young, that was kind of like you obviously want to be like your dad, and that was a big place for me. And then things didn't really fall into place there. But I always just kind of remember like always keeping an eye out for that game because like just like you said, there's always a crazy atmosphere. Like they're a national brand, and then there's like that little like personal kind of tie into it. And then the year before we had a Friday night game that just that one still is up under my skin, but did not go the way that we wanted at all. And so kind of like the next year, like, all right, ready to go. And so we come out firing, and it's just weird because that Beaver Stadium is normally like electric. Like they got the music bumping, but you can barely hear it because people are screaming. And I remember one of my really good buddies, Ace. He's a Georgia Tech now. We had a play where he had got real lucky. He had a strip sack. Like I lucked out, was in the right spot, like no one was around. So picked it up, ended up scoring, and we were both in the end zone and like looking at nobody. And like we were just kind of like hanging out there, and like it's one of those things you're excited because the game's going on and you're just like, this is not what I thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like watching dress rehearsals. It was
Yeah.
a scrimmage where right before the season starts, most every team in the country plays a kind of a very controlled intra-squad scrimmage in the uniforms and stuff, so that you go,
Yeah.
you get all your pregame stuff done. I mean, everyone does the same thing, and that's kind of what it
Yeah.
looked like. And it just had this,
That's what it felt like. Yeah.
right?
It felt
Yeah,
like a scrimmage that just meant more.
yeah. All right, so you made the decision. You graduated from Maryland. I know you weren't in the portal very long, I don't think. Did you go into the portal pretty much knowing where you were headed, or what was that experience like?
No, I mean, so I I went in the portal having like an idea of places that I thought might fit. And then so you do a little bit of research, make sure because the portal is like a tricky place. And so like it's not always super fortuitous. Like a lot of guys don't get exactly what they think they're going to get out of it. And so it's just like you don't want to get stuck. So you want to have things that you think might work, but you never really know because you can't do anything until you get in there. Um, but I did know that I wasn't going to be able to be somewhere for spring ball. So I did want to make that decision quickly though, because I wanted to learn the playbook. I wanted to like pay attention to the team, like try to best I could, like understand some of the dynamics there. And um, so like I knew that when I did get in, that I wanted it to be like a quick process. So those, I think it might have been 2 weeks, maybe just under 3. Um, like a lot of phone calls, a lot of research. Like it was a kind of hectic couple weeks.
When you made the decision about Ole Miss, what was it that steered you towards Ole Miss? I know that you knew Coach Durkin. He's the defensive coordinator at Ole Miss now. I'm sure that played a role in it, but what else kind of played a role?
Yeah, that place just really checked off every box that I had. So I mean, I have a lot of Big Ten pride playing the Big Ten East, but there's always that question: Big Ten East or SEC West? And so like I knew that I wanted to go play the best football that I could. Um, and the SEC West is definitely there. So that was huge right there. Just like you said, Coach Durkin was there, and I liked everything that he's about. I liked the defense that they were running. So that checked out for me. I know I developed as a player. He's one of the smartest football coaches I've ever been around. And that staff kind of follow the same suit. Those guys are just geniuses from the top down. So I was going to learn a lot there. And then I was also a place that like really cared about football. Like kind of like you always see the tagline, like it means more. But it like I mean, having been down there, it does. Like guys on the team care about it. Like I mean, not that guys don't everywhere, but it's just like there's not as much going on there. So it's like that's it. So I like all those things just added up, and it just ended up being like a really great fit.
So I know you've been in and around Oxford since late May, early June. What have your impressions been of Oxford, of Mississippi, of the South? Is how much of a culture shock, if at all, is it from Maryland to Mississippi?
Yeah, no, I've never been to that part of the country. Like I've never been that far south, so it was definitely new. The humidity got me a little bit. I thought I knew humidity, like living not too far from DC. Like it gets pretty hot and pretty humid here, but that it hits you right in the morning as soon as you walk out the door. So that was something that was kind of funny that you know about, you read about, but you get there and you experience. But life down south to me is just a little bit slower, which I really like. It's not as rushed. Like you still get your stuff done and you're still getting at it, but like the pace of life's a little bit slower, which I enjoy. People are super friendly. Um, Southern hospitality is a real thing, so that's pretty cool.
What about the team? How when you join a team as a transfer, I'm sure there's a little bit of, I don't know what the word is, maybe not trepidation, but maybe you're a little anxious because you don't really know, how guys are going to accept you. And obviously when you come in as a grad transfer, they're not bringing in, let's be real here. You're not bringing in grad transfers from Big Ten programs to sit on the end of your bench. You're bringing those guys into play to plug into a role, not to be a project. So you're coming in, and obviously the coaches are bringing you into play to play a role. What just kind of how readily accepted were you by your teammates? What was that transition like to go from being, a team leader at Maryland to, hey, a new guy at Ole Miss?
Yeah, no, that was something that I definitely had a lot of concern about because it's only natural that there might be a little bit, like a little rub there, but it really wasn't. And that's not like me being on a podcast saying it. Like I was shocked that there really wasn't, like before I even got there. It's like tough to single guys out, but like Lakia Henry, one of the nicest dudes. I mean, that whole linebacker room, top down, those are all solid dudes. But I bring him up because he actually called me, just asked how I was doing, like out of the blue. I remember I was in the kitchen with my mom, got a phone call, didn't recognize the number, and it ended up being him. He's like, "Hey man, just like really excited to have you down here. Just like want to know how you're doing." And like that's an example I can point to. But like I've had an example like that with everybody in the linebacker room, and then guys in the whole locker room are really great about it. And I think that's something that like I don't even know if I could hope for it to be as good as it is there. So that was really cool. And then I think part of it is a little bit of role I have to play. So I was a leader at Maryland, and that's something that I took a lot of pride in. But I think I like have said it to some of my buddies when I talk about the experience. But I think there's like an art of being a new guy. So like coming into a locker room, there's an art to it. Like, like listen, don't talk as much, get to know guys, just kind of follow, understand, and then really just help the best way that you can. But you can't do that unless you listen and you understand the situation. So try to do my part too.
Which is interesting because I'm wondering if the coaches, when they brought you in, when they signed you, part of one of the things they liked about you, obviously they think you're a player and all of that, but did they want you to come in and be a leader? And if so, how does that process work in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so because that's something that I think I have some good leadership qualities, and without pat my back too much, but I think that's one of those things that'll develop naturally. So again, like kind of going back to the whole art of the new guy, I don't think you come in and start barking too much. I think you just come in and then like really, I mean, that never really was my style anyways. It's always kind of a lead by example kind of gig. And then like, I'm always a big fan of kind of like take one, touch one. So grab a dude. And if you think you can help somebody out, like grab one, help them out the best you can, then try to like set him on a path to go help somebody else. So I think doing that in the off season, and then if it's going to be that in the regular season, I think a lot of that has to do with just play. So it's one of those things that's like, I don't really put too much emphasis on it because if it's going to happen, it'll happen. You know what I mean? So I'm going to do my best to set a good example and try to help guys the best way that I can. And hopefully that falls in line.
I know you report to Oxford later this week. You got to start camp late this week, early this weekend. I'm not sure on specifics. It doesn't really matter. You got a month to get ready for your season. What is camp like at the college level? What do you anticipate with a Lane Kiffin camp as opposed to what you experienced at Maryland?
Yeah, I'll be interested because everybody does things differently. I think camp is universal in the sense that it's a grind. Like you get up early, you go to bed late, and between those hours, it's all ball. So that's when I was a freshman. I think it happens to a lot of freshmen. Like that's what you want. You're excited for it, and then you get it, and you're like, that's a lot. So that's something that now, like you get older and you understand, you kind of accept. But then like once you get a little bit older, it's something that you really enjoy because there's really not any distractions. Like you don't have to worry about school, which is like awesome. Like, cause you're just all ball. You don't really have to worry about anything socially because you're with the guys the whole time playing ball. And like you have a pretty singular focused goal, which is just getting ready for that first game of the season. So it's like, it's nice because it's one of the few times in life that you can really just dive in on your craft, which is pretty cool.
No, you weren't part of the defense a year ago. Obviously, you were playing at Maryland, but they struggled on defense at times, especially throughout the early and middle part of the season. I thought they played a little better towards the end. But I was talking to Jalen Jones the other day at SEC Media Days, and he was like, look, I mean, there's only one way you can make the criticism go away, and that's to play differently. It did seem to be, talking to him, talking to Matt Corral, it did seem to be there's a kind of a chip on the shoulder a little bit. There's still something to prove. There's a renewed confidence inside that building. And again, I know this is impossible for you to make the comparison in years because you weren't there, but when you're around those guys, do you sort of sense those themes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think those guys, Jalen's a perfect example since you brought him up. I see him around the facility, iPad in hand, watching tape. And he's not the only one. That's the norm, not the exception. Guys getting in extra work because they feel like there's more to prove because we didn't have the year that we would have liked to have had last year. And I think, like, I obviously wasn't a part of it, but watched a lot of tape, and we did trend in the right direction. So like, I think that guys are proud of what we have, but aren't necessarily proud of what we put on tape last year. And I think that's a cool thing to have because, like, you're pretty sure on what we got. So, I mean, I'm new, obviously, but I see the guys that we have around. We have all the right pieces. We have the right scheme. We have, like, things are going to fall in line. So now it's just kind of up to us to go do it. So chip on the shoulder to get you jump started is never a bad thing.
You mentioned playing in the SEC West. You're going to get your taste of it this fall. Is there one or two, we'll talk about this throughout the year because it's one of the reasons I wanted to do this with you is, the fans don't know you yet and they're getting to know you, and you don't know the SEC yet. You've never played against LSU. You've never played against Alabama, against Auburn, against Arkansas, whatever. Is there, are there a couple of experiences? I know that the stock answer here, Chance, is no, it's one day at a time, one practice at a time. All our focus is on that. I get it. But in the back of your mind, is there something that you're like, I do look forward to X. I am curious about X. Is there one of those things that stick out?
See, one thing that I really am excited about is I've heard a lot of things about, like, a game day in Oxford. So the first game day in Oxford, I'm really excited about. And so it's cool because there's something about every game that we get that I'm super pumped for. Obviously, Louisville, first game of the year, get to go back to the East Coast, which was cool, playing in an amazing stadium. So that's the first game, first prize. So that's the one that I'm kind of itching for right now. But then you fast forward and start looking at some of these games, and it's like there's something special about every one. So I'll make the comparison to the Big Ten just because it's what I know. But there's something special about playing Ohio State in the show. But there's also something special about taking a train up to New Jersey, which is what we did the year before I got there. But that experience going up New Brunswick and playing Rutgers there, and there was something special when my freshman year when we went to Iowa and they did the way to the Children's Hospital. So there's something really cool about each game, and I'm excited about finding that in the SEC. So finding that special thing in each game. So I'm pretty sure we go to Alabama this year, which will be awesome. I'm working on my geography, but Arkansas and Mississippi they're border states. So that's cool to have a border state thing going on. So there's something neat about each game that I'm excited about.
Well, listen, really appreciate the time. Looking forward to doing this throughout the year. I know that you got camp coming up that's going to occupy you for a little while. When you get through with camp, I think that first game week we'll get you back on, and we'll get started with visiting with you weekly. I know that the fans are excited about it, and enjoy your time with your family. And I look forward to seeing you later this week. I'll get this gear to you for before you get cracked into camp, and then we'll go from there. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's Chance Campbell. We'll be back with him throughout the entire football season here at rebelgrove.com and MPW Digital.